Chapter 5. As darkness fell over again, David wandered across the meadow toward the thickets that separated his father's pastures from the landscape of vegetation where he attempted to avenge his father's flock yet again. This time, he came more prepared with thick rope in one hand and a hatchet in the other. On his shoulders, he carried 20 pounds of raw venison meat in a pouch made of Nile crocodile skin. After making a small campfire, reaching his destination, he found two almond bay morel trees with only about 10 yards of distance from each other. He climbed one of the trees before tying one large rope to one of its branches, tying a firm knot around the base, using another rope to tie around another branch, supported by the other neighboring tree until the two ropes formed a small circle trap that David laced on the ground. After firmly setting the rope trap, David went into his crocodile skin pouch to retrieve the venison. He grabbed a stick and began to place the meat in a shish kebab fashion before placing it over the fire to flame cook. He knew that the aroma of flesh cooking would attract his target. The night was as dark as the previous, but a little bit cooler as a small breeze pushing off of the Red Sea made David thank God for the warm fire in front of him. The sheep wool clothing that he wore was not enough. David waited, sitting on the soil, twigs and deceased leaves that fell from the trees. The food's aroma was carried by a breeze moving eastward, jaunting across the land of about 25 miles per hour. It was the speed of the cold wind that carried it, slamming into David's nostrils first, causing an appetite as 2 hours passed by. David began nibbling on the cooked shish kebab venison, almost losing track of his mission until he heard a twig crack about 20 yards northeast from where he was seated. The sound of large lungs taking breaths of attentiveness froze David as he looked ahead, still with the meat in his mouth as he took a final bite of the stick before slowly standing up. The giant bear, Ursus arctos syriacus, a huge Syrian brown bear, slowly walked towards David, bellowing in grunts. David stretched out his shish kebab, taunting the bear, waving it as the bear followed David as he lured him to the trap that was set. David's goal was to lead the bear to step in the rope circle placed on the ground. David quickly grabbed the hatchet that was lying by the night fire. The bear sprinted at David with speed that seemed unfit for a creature that size, with agility focused to annihilate the lad. David barely escaped, cartwheeling over the near trap, using the hatchet to chop down on the lever that kept the trap stabilized on the ground, just in the nick of time, as the bear darted inside the rope's firm grip that snapped around his neck, squeezing tighter and tighter as the bear struggled for freedom. It was almost as if the morel trees that held the rope trap intact had a life of their own, as the branches resembled human arms, strangling the bear as it fought for its life. The struggle was only for a few minutes as David watched the bear struggle for its very last breath, but being unable to succeed. David kneeled down to his knees while grabbing the bear's lifeless paw and started to give God Almighty thanks for allowing him to capture one of the foes of his father's flock. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of mine head. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. David took his hatchet and chopped off the gargantuan claws that poked out from the bear's 4 feet before placing it in his pouch. As David placed the last of the claws inside of the pouch, he heard a grumbling ahead of him. The lion appeared out of nowhere, looking even larger than it seemed before. Its gaze on David was menacing and direct. David's trap was already utilized, and his confidence faded abruptly. In one instant, David fled towards the meadow as the lion chased him from behind, every gallop being heard seemingly getting closer and closer. David looked back as he ran, tripping over a stone that was lodged underneath a tree root. The lion stood over David as the young lad quickly jumped up back upon his feet. This time he knew that running would only make things worse, so he stared into the lion's eyes as the fear began to dissipate, turning into anger. David walked closer to the lion as the lion's posture deteriorated in confusion. David roared at the lion as loud as he could, trying to mimic the sound of a lion himself. David knew that he was not strong enough to go toe-to-toe with nature's most fierce predator, but he knew that he did not have to be. He saw a loophole that would favor him in this fight. David picked up the stone that he tripped over, and threw it at the lion's face, striking the lion in the left eye. The eye was punctured as the lion yelped while turning away from David and fleeing in the opposite direction.